Yeah, so first of all, I'm gonna drag, where is it? This is my secondary GPT window. So in this video, we're gonna try to build five different workflows. Right? So we're gonna use Draw for this, and we're gonna try to build this out. Okay. So the first one I have on my list is, of course, let's do cloud project. Let's jump back here. So first of all, we're going to start with we're going to turn this to dark mode, and let's go ahead and select this. So first of all, we have, let me do that. Cool. So let's say, for example, should be better off. That's fine. So let's do, first of all, for this, you need S3, right? So we need S3, and then we need the CloudFront. So let's say CloudFront, and let's say we have, sorry, we'll just do it like that. We have CloudFront, and we have CDN. So that's the CDN is through CloudFront. CDN with ACM, which is access control management, and we have Route 53, which is DNS. So we have the DNS and the domain within this. So something .com. So let's say testing fifth project 5proj.com. Let's just call it that because this is the So let's say 5project.com, and we have the DNS system through Route 53. And that's the one that's going to be used to access the website. So we can also have, let's say right here, I need like a shortcut for this. So what's the word? Right, so let's say, what's the word? Mouse views. Oh, okay. So you can just use your spacebar if you want. Okay, cool. I'll get used to that. So first of all, you just need you need three things. So first of all, we need GitHub Actions. All right, so GitHub Actions, then we have CI/CD, so we need GitHub Actions, we need code pipeline, so something that executes the code pipeline. So this could be even like a Jenkins system, so that means it contains the Docker. So we'll have, if we need Docker containers, I don't think we need Docker containers in this case, but let's just assume we need Docker images plus container, and then we have a pod, Kubernetes pod, so K10 pod. So we pretty much have, say, Docker images. So we have the application Docker image, aka app container. Okay, so we have that. We have the this, and we have this, then we have this, and we have that. Okay, so pretty much we have that, and we have that, and then we have this. Okay, cool. So now we have the diagram to an extent. So you can see that we have the GitHub Actions code pipeline, the K10 pod, which is the part of the Jenkins pipeline. So this is Docker image, Docker container out of the image, and then we have the Kubernetes pod, and then we have the code pipeline, which is the whole orchestration of the service, and we have the GitHub Actions to be pushing. So we could have GitHub Actions actually, right? Sorry, we could have GitHub Actions right over here. Okay, let's use number 5. Boom. Okay, so you can see that we have that. We have S3, which is the S3 bucket. So let's just call it S3. I don't know. We'll call it 5proj. 5. Let's call it 5th bucket. All right, 5th bucket, because it's a 5th project. So keep in mind, the reason why I'm doing that is because it's the 5th project, as in on this list, the 5th project. Okay, so we have the code pipeline, we have S3 bucket, we have CloudFront for content delivery, and we have the Route 53, right? So first of all, the user, so the client, of course, makes the request from this end. So it's no, this is awkward. So let's say 8, client request, and then we finally get the client. So we have the client request, and we get a client response from here, and we get that data from here, right? So all the data comes from S3. We have the CloudFront to deliver the network, and then we have the request and response cycle. So this is the request, and this is the response. Okay, request packet, response packet. So once we have this diagram done, we're going to move on to the fourth project. So I'll just call it fourth project. Okay, right here. So this is the fourth project, so let's just put that here. So now for the fourth project, we have the secure VPC network lab. Okay, so the one we're going to do here is we're going to do, first of all, we're going to have a VPC, right? We're going to have a VPC, huge box. So we have this right here, make it a little bigger. So this is the whole VPC. Maybe I'll put this here. So what we're going to do in this case is we're going to have subnets. So subnets will have first subnet. This is the public subnet. This is the private subnet, right? Call it public, and I don't know why it's so small. We'll call it public, and then we have the private subnet, of course. So we'll actually, before that, we do it in original size, public, and that way we can just increase that. And then we'll do public, and then we'll do it's the public subnet. And we have the private subnet right next to it. Private subnet. So it's the private subnet, and we have the public subnet right next to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to have that, and we're going to have this. Cool. So the private subnet is basically where we would have all the DBs and stuff. So we'll have private DB. So we'll call it, let me just make this smaller. So it's smaller. Fuck. Fourth one. So let's just go, oh fuck. So let's call it private or private DB or user DB. And we could have a few more DBs like this. So it could be user DB, could have I don't know, orders DB, things like this, right? So we have private data, and we need a public NAT gateway for this to happen, right? So in the middle of this, we're going to make this a little smaller. We're going to put that in there. We'll create a NAT gateway between these two. So let's do here. Fuck, I fucked up. What the fuck? Okay, this is not working for some reason, so let me just try like, alright, well that's not working. Call it the NAT gateway. Alright, so you see the NAT gateway right here, so we have the public subnet as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and use this public subnet. So we have the NAT gateway for the private subnet's communication for the public subnet. So then we have the internet gateway from here to access the rest of the internet, right? So first of all, let me try this. So I'm going to try this right here. I'm going to say internet gateway, and through this internet gateway we're going to have another one, which is basically right here. We have this what we call this the security group. So this is where all the network configuration is going to happen. So I'm actually going to use a different shape for this. So let's just do number 2, call it security group, inbound and outbound traffic control. Alright, so we have that, right? So we have the inbound and outbound traffic control through the security group. And when we do that, once we do that, we have the bastion. So the bastion is actually the SSH into the private EC2. So this EC2, so this whole thing could be wrapped around EC2. As in, we could make this the VPC, and then we have that the EC2 around it. So let's say we'll make that here, and then we'll have an EC2 around that. So we'll make that ginormous. Boom. So once we do that, we have to do this a little lower. So we have the EC2, we have the VPC inside it, we have the public, private and public subnets over here, and then we have the under network segmentation, we have the NAT gateway for the private subnet to access the public subnet, and then we have the internet gateway to access the security group. So we can control the inbound and outbound traffic over here, and we can also control, so by this you can actually control the SSH as well. So for SSH you need to make sure you set the right kind of rules over here. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to have a different one over here. We're going to call it SSH into private EC2. So it's a private EC2, which means it's inbound traffic. So you can SSH into it through this internet gateway, right? Sorry. So we have both sides, which means you go from here to here as well. here as well, right? So actually it should be at the outer layer. So boom, just like that. And once you have the security group, the inbound outbound traffic control is SSH into EC2. And once we do that, we have the route tables, NACLs and SGs. So NACL is actually part of the VPC level. So VPC level, we have the NACL, right? Network access control list. And then on the what else? Route tables and NACL security groups. Once again, I've defined that over here. And the SSH into private EC2 is also defined over here. So then you can internally access the resources between these two using SSH as well. So in the in this itself, we can have SSH inbound traffic allowed, as in you can use SSH to communicate. So it's a SSH inbound traffic allowed. Cool. All right, so we have that, and we have everything in between. So we can see the VPC, and yeah, so VPC flow logs. So once again, you can add this thing called flow logs, which means it would with flow logs with VPC flow logs. So as in you can connect the VPC flow logs onto this VPC, and then you can send those flow logs to another thing. For example, you can send it to CloudWatch, which is an external system that tracks all the traffic that flows back and forth. So let's say CloudWatch right here. Okay, so you see CloudWatch right here. We have CloudWatch. So this is the one that monitors the whole watches over the resources. So let's just say monitors. Okay, CloudWatch monitors. And once we do that, what we do next is we have the CloudWatch, right? Of course. So from CloudWatch, we transfer these flow logs. You can transfer it to either an S3 bucket, or you can transfer it to a, let me show you guys, S3 bucket. Say S3 bucket, where is it? Sorry. S3 bucket for flow logs? No, not really. S3 bucket for, what the fuck is it? Yeah, let's just say S3 bucket fourth flow logs. So it saves all the S3 logs from the S3 bucket over here, right? You can even have queues, SNS queues and SQS queues, but I prefer not to have it for now, right? So, and we have CloudWatch, so you can send these logs. You can send some of these logs from here to CloudWatch, right? So once you send that logs to CloudWatch, you can monitor the transactions in here, right? So you can just literally monitor what it's like, what's happening inside. It would look something like this. So we have the, you know, the monitoring other metrics as well. So we have KPIs, key performance indicators. So we can use that to track what sort of back and forth traffic that's happening within CloudWatch, right? From the flow logs coming from the VPC. So the VPC flow logs will determine all sorts of stuff, because the subnets are within the VPC. It will detect all sorts of traffic that's coming in and monitor the whole resources within CloudWatch. Okay, and any excessive logs, it will transfer it onto from the VPC to the S3 bucket, this one. Okay, and we would have an S3 bucket in here that would get those logs. So yeah, so that's the second one. So let's move, I mean fourth one. So now let's move on to the third one, which is, call it third project. So as you can see, now let's move to number 3. Okay, third project is a containerized microservices on ECS Fargate. Now microservices is a backend service with individual components. So it's divided an application into the smaller parts, right? So microservices on Fargate, so containerized, right? So we need containers, so Docker containers, and we need Kubernetes for orchestration, and we need a CI/CD pipeline. So we could do it with Jenkins, and that's my idea on the surface. So let's do it, shall we? So first of all, we'll have a few Docker images. Okay, we'll call it Docker. We'll say Docker image 1, and we'll call it the product. Let's make it a little bigger, just like that. There we go. So we'll have a second Docker image. We'll call this one user. All right, call user. And then we'll have the third Docker image, which is, sorry. Yeah, the third Docker image. This one will be called cart. So these three images right here, these are three different containers. So Docker container, let's call it. Image, which then leads to a container, pretty much. So same procedure over here. So let's just do Docker image, which becomes a container. User. And then we have the third container, which is a Docker image, becomes a container, which is called cart. Okay. So once you have these three containers, now we can pretty much use ECS, which is Elastic Container Service, and use ALB with it, right? So Elastic Container Service is called Fargate, right, for event-driven serverless Elastic Container Service. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this whole thing around ECS, okay? Because that's the parent of the containers, okay? For AWS. So you see ECS, and we have all these containers within that. So once we have these containers within that, what we're going to do is we're going to use an elastic load balancer for this, okay? As in, we're going to attach that for the whole container. So let's just do number 2, and let's call it ALB. We'll make this ginormous, okay? So we have an ALB in the middle. Now this one is going to be used to access the balance the load of the application. So let's do that. And once we have this, we have control over the requests that are coming in as well, and the response that goes out. So it balances out the whole application's like load, right? That's the whole point of it. So once we have that, right, we have an ECR, which is the Elastic Container Registry. So we have so let's say, for example, I'm pretty sure you need to send these let's say to ECR. So let's say EC, let me say right here, ECR, and we send those logs to this one as well. Number five. So you send that over here, which is the registers container data. So once we have these running as well, what we do next is we have the ALB, which control the traffic, inbound and outbound traffic. So from there, we have GitHub Actions and Copilot, so code pipeline. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to have a separate, so the same procedures here. We have this. We have that same thing repeating over here. Let's just make this a little bit bigger because it's pretty fucking small. I don't think I can increase the size of it, but yeah, so I can't increase the size of it, but you get the point. So that point in here. So pretty much we have GitHub Actions, we have Docker image, we have container, K10 pod, code pipeline, and finally those stuff all serve to the application's procedures, right, for ECS. And then we have the ECR, which is registering the container's data. And then finally we have this is done. So CloudWatch log done, ALB. So CloudWatch logs, you can send that to CloudWatch logs as well. So let's parallelly do CloudWatch. Sorry, I'm gonna make this a little smaller. Sorry. CloudWatch logs plus ALB. Alright. Sorry, alarms. So the alarms here. We already have an ALB, I'm tripping. So once we have that, okay. So it would be something like let's say right here we'll have alarms, and if it reaches a certain limit, it will send us alarms to our console, or it would do SES. So you could have alarms configured as SES, which is basically a simple email service. It would send an email, right? This is the whole process over here. Okay, so once we have that ECR, the ECS, and the ALB, application load balancer, and we have GitHub Actions, Docker image, K10 pod, code pipeline, and ALB. So this is the application load balancer. And finally, one second, fifth one. So let's just do, yeah, once we have the application load balancer, we're going to have yeah, what do we have here? So yeah, so this is basically where the client is going to be sending a request from. Sorry, I fucked up. Sorry. How can I cancel this shit? Alright, my bad. Let me just cancel this real quick. say client, and we'll make that to a massive thing. Okay, so now we have the whole diagram of the application, how it will flow. Docker image, K10 pod, code pipeline. We have the containers which will register data, so boom, just like that. And finally we have the application load balancer, the CloudWatch logs as well. We'll receive that data from here. And finally the client request and response cycle, so it's a request and we'll say response. All right, now we will move on to the second project, which is basically the, say for example, second. So we'll just do. Alright, so this project, what we're going to do is we're going to try to do serverless real-time order tracking. So this is the project, so we'll call it, we'll use an API gateway for this. So first of all, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to like make this a little bit bigger. Actually, I can't make this bigger for some reason. So we just try to do API gateway. If I can make this a little bigger. I can't make it a little bigger for some reason. This is fucking annoying. I'm trying to do is like, say, okay. Let me try like, I was able to do that, but for some reason it's just not letting me. API gateway. So we have the request response cycles from here. Request and response cycles. So customer would, or a client would send a request or response right here, and that would cater to demand. For example, let's say client sends a, so let's say client sends a 5th, do that with the request, we have the response as well. So we have the request and the response over here, and we have the API gateway. So let me just get rid of this. So once we do that, we have Lambda functions. So let's say Lambda functions. Okay. So this could be any type of function. So let's say right here, we'll point this over here. Let's say boom, Lambda functions, and from the Lambda functions we have DynamoDB. So we have DynamoDB right here. DB with event streams. Alright, so we have event streams right here as well. So let's do number 5 because it saves that data on DynamoDB. So SNS and SES via Lambda trigger. So we can actually have SES, and so the way it works is we could have event logs. So let's just say SES, or we'll use SNS, simple notification system, and we have SQS right here. Okay, so once we do all that, we will have this, we will have this as well. Okay, so SNS is a simple notification system, so this is the general system, and next we have individual queues. So this is good, the QUE, we'll call it that queues, for differentiation in different types of flow logs. Cool. Fucking can't pronounce. Alright. Cool. So once we have that request response cycle, API gateway, Lambda functions, DynamoDB, and we have finally we have the step functions. So that means when we have multiple Lambda functions, how we're gonna have it work in a step-by-step workflow, right? So let's just do a few functions. So let's say Lambda function 1, or let's say login, and we'll have I don't know, visit dashboard, and we have visit dashboard. So there's a diff dashboard component. It's a dashboard. Okay, see dashboard, and finally we have what else? Dashboard, and finally we have I don't know, order, place order. So order component. So these are divided into individual functions. That's the point of it. So sorry, order component. All right. So once we do that, we have this going towards this, going towards that. and that's just how it works. So we could have all these functions going to the SNS, which would divide the different kind of functions that are receiving. So we would do that over here as well, and boom, we have client sending a request and a response, API gateway, YND DynamoDB, login, SNS, SQS, the different components. So this is the login. Let me make this more clear. Function. We see dashboard function. We'll call the other one place order function. Or yeah, that should work. So we have this whole system running like that, and that's the whole point of this system, as you can see, right? So once we have this one done as well, what we can do now is, it's the second project. We can now move on to the first project, which is the production grade 3 tier web app with auto healing plus CI/CD, right? So let's say, for example, let me just try, and let's just do first project. Okay, so now what we can do is we can get a few things from here. So first of all, I'm going to grab the code pipeline end. Code pipeline, so we'll grab this, right? And what can we grab? We can grab that. We can grab, do we need containers? We don't need containers, so we can grab that from that. Oh, we might be able to grab a VPC. So we could grab this one as well. Auto scaling group, code pipeline, auto scaling group, VPC. We can grab, we don't need RDS, front end EC2, that's fine. ALB, so we can grab a majority of stuff from here actually. Okay, so we have a few things to grab. First of all, we can grab this. So let's just go all the way to the bottom, and let's just do Control V. And once we have this, what we can grab next is the VPCs, right? So let's grab the VPCs. All right, so right here we can grab this. Cool. Okay, so once we have that, we have the VPC, the EC2, and everything in between. So we have the ALB in front of this as well. So let's just do a, let's say, okay, ALB will be from the client side. So let's say right here, I'm gonna draw ALB. Let's say ALB. I'll place this in here. I'm gonna make, okay, well, that's annoying. Yeah, so we'll just keep ALB here, just like this. So we have the ALB, and we have the ASG before this. So let's say before this, actually no, we'll have the ASG from this as well. So we'll say ALB, and we have the ASG as well. So we have the load balancer. Actually, we'll have the load balancer here, the ASG here, and yeah. So once we have that, we have both of these as individual components. We can have so that gateway and everything is also here. So how are we gonna fix the flows, right? So we have a security group, so we need security group right here. We do have a security group, do we? So okay, so we have this and these. So it naturally will use a gateway to access the public. This is actually awkward as fuck to show you, but basically this is the internet gateway. So we'll do something like this. Internet. Okay, so we'll use an internet gateway to access the public resources. So what we do here is, of course, we have the what do you call it, RDS. So let's just go ahead and make another entity for an RDS. Let's go ahead and make a RDS system. Cool. Can we do RDS? Okay, so we have the RDS and relational database. So we have the RDS, and then we have EC2. So we have Node.js or Python. So we'll have a Node.js or Python. Let's just say Node image, Node app. Okay, so let's just say Node app. So if it's an EC2 instance, then we need to configure servers and stuff, right? So apart from that, Yeah, we have React on the S3 on the front end. So S3, where is it? You'll have an S3 bucket, so we can have it within this public subnet. So we'll call it S3 first bucket. Let's say first bucket. Alright. So S3 first bucket. And yeah, so once we have that, S3 first bucket, and we have CloudFront. So CloudFront for content delivery. Alright. So we'll do content delivery network. So let's just do content delivery. So we'll have them as one big container. All right. No, we'll have them as one big container. So CDN CloudFront. So it's a CloudFront, which is the CDN. Okay. So once we do all this, we can have so SG will actually be powering the so all three of these will be like working in harmony. So I don't know which one to put in front, but yeah, so CloudFront will be delivering the content, and the S3 buckets content actually. Yeah, S3 buckets content. CloudFront will be the one that's going to be delivering. So S3 bucket, and then we have the CloudFront system, which will be delivering that network. CloudFront. So through CloudFront, it will be delivering to the outside world. Through CloudFront, it will be then delivering that to this, right? So once we have that, GitHub Actions, Docker image, K8 pod, code pipeline, and this is the first project. We have the VPC with flow logs, SSH inbound traffic allowed, and we have the public and the private subnet with the different subnets, different DBs within this. We have the public subnet, we have the access control over here, internet gateway, and relational database. And that's pretty much all we need to do. And yeah, that's all for now. Thank you guys for watching. This is the first, second, the third project. As you can see, the recap, we have this. Third, containers, ECS, container service, and the registry. And then we have ALB, CloudWatch logs, client request and response cycles, as you can see. And finally, we have the final project, which is, we have the fourth project, which is security groups. We have SSH into the security groups. We have an internet gateway. We have VPCs and the subnets within this, you can see. So we have net gateway and the SSH inbound traffic allowed from here. So inbound traffic is actually the other way around. So that'll be this. So apart from that, what else do we have? CloudWatch monitors, S3 bucket, fourth flow logs. So this is the bucket that saves all the VPC logs from the fourth flow. So let me just call it VPC logs, right? So once we do that, we have the first one, which is this one. So as you can see, we have the GitHub Actions, we have the Docker image, we have the K8 pod, we have the code pipeline, S3 bucket, CloudFront once again for delivery and the access control management. We have Route 53 DNS plus DNS, which is the final DNS, and we have the request response cycle from the client. And that's it. Those are the few cloud projects, 5 projects over here. You can take a screenshot, take whatever you want. So yeah, this is the system. If you wanna, you can like probably like, you know, go back in time and like see what's up. And yeah, that's all for this video. I'm gonna see you guys in my next one. The next one's gonna be more advanced though, so be prepared for that, because that is going to be pretty dang complex, and this is the last time we're going to be fiddling with these stuff, because we got to move to production level applications, like bigger production level applications. So we gotta move on to bigger and better things, you feel me? So you do that, ELB, we have the application load balancer that controls the traffic, right? And then ASG, which controls the number of instances. So let's say maybe I should have missed that part. Number of instances, and we have the number balancing the load, application level. Okay, we also have an NLB, which is a network level load balancer. So that's for the network level. Okay, so we have this ASG, which is a number of instances. So we have min for minimum. When there's not much traffic, we use minimum instances. We have desired, which is the medium number of instances, and we have max, which is the full number of instances. So if it's reaching the max behavior, that's called burst behavior, and it's throttling. So because it's about to burst, right? That's the whole point of it. So yeah, that's